Here are two stories why I believe we do have two-tier policing or two-tier justice or whatever you want to call it in the UK. And no, this is not going to turn into a far-right conspiracy theorist nonsense video. But if you do want a fresh and refreshing alternative to the mainstream media from a practicing barrister, please do subscribe to my channel and allow me to explain. Welcome back to the channel. So thank you all so much for subscribing. We continue to grow past 500,000 subscribers. I am on a mission to 1 million subscribers to help you all understand law. So yes, you heard me right at the outset. There is, in my view, a two-tier policing and two-tier justice operating in the UK, but for very good reason, which I will explain. But I'll also explain why it's not for the reason that many people might think it is. Now, to just give you a spoiler alert, I will mention briefly the Manchester airport incident and all of the civil unrest that's happening all across has been happening all across the UK, the response to it and why people think that has generated two-tier policing. But let's start with the stories first. Now, these are two of countless stories. These are just two that have been told to me as a lawyer that I've sort of assisted people to understand, and one of which was the theft of a mobile phone. Now, I did a video about this quite some time ago. Now, this person actually was a former student of mine, now a practicing barrister, who had her mobile phone stolen. And because of the way phones work, they've got tracking and GPS and everything else, she knew exactly where this phone was. And so she tracked it to a location. She went back to, first of all, she went back to the coffee shop where it was stolen. I did a whole video about this. I'll link it in the description below. She went back to the coffee shop where it was stolen. They looked at the CCTV. She found out who it was that stole it, so she knew what they looked like. Obviously, she took the evidence because she wanted to report it to the police. She found her phone where it was. She went to the police and said, here's my phone. Here's the person that took it. This is what they look like. This is where the phone is right now because I can track it. Please help me. Police, in short, said no. Police were not willing to help. Why? Well, because the police resources are stretched, and that's to say the least, and there are thousands of mobile phone thefts, and the police just didn't have the time to deal with it. So she, rather sillily or bravely, whichever way you look at it, went with a couple of friends to retrieve this phone. And she got it back. To my surprise, nothing went wrong, but she got the phone back. Now, when she got there, she also phoned the police and said, I am here. I am going to confront the person that obviously has my phone, and I'm going to get it back. Will you come and assist? And again, the police said no. That's one story where the police did not intervene. Now, contrasting that, and I'll give you a good reason why there's a good contrast for that, with social media posts. And at the moment, they've said that they have teams of police officers trawling through social media to pull up things that people have said during this civil unrest and then going to arrest them and charging them and bringing them to court and so on. Why that might sound like there's two-tier justice, I will explain all of that in just a moment. The second story is more serious, you might think, than a mobile phone, although mobile phones are taken quite seriously by the courts. It's a specific offence. More about that in another video, but you might think it's more serious to have your car stolen, obviously because of the value. Someone I know had a car stolen, and again had a tracker installed, again contacted the police, and again the police weren't interested in coming to look for it. And again he tracked it to a location. Again the software told him that the bonnet was open, the doors were open, the boot was open. Clearly this was a chop shop where they carve up these vehicles, they sell them for parts, and in many cases they get more for them than they would the original vehicle. Plus they don't have the risk of selling the car on and being traced back to them and whatever. That's why they do that, I presume. But again, he knew exactly where the vehicle was. It was in a garage in a fairly affluent part of town. And he spoke to the police and said, I know where the car is. It is here. It's on a map. I can send you a pinpoint location of where the car is because of GPS tracking. Police said, well, we can't do that because we need a warrant. But that's not entirely correct either, because with appropriate evidence, which they would have because the vehicle was stolen and they knew exactly where the vehicle was, they would have been able to get a warrant had they gone through the process and the motions. but didn't, presumably because of resources, etc. So again, when you contrast that with police storming people's house to arrest them for social media posts, you might think two-tier justice. And that's absolutely right. But now allow me to explain. With the situation, let's take it when the phone was stolen and when the car was stolen. Let's call that normal, as in it's not very nice and it shouldn't be normal that things get stolen, but let's take that as a normal peacetime where there's the normal level of crime and wrongdoing going on, and the police are stretched to the usual extent, and bearing in mind funding cuts and all sorts of stuff, which we won't get into. But the normal level of crime and the normal level of demand on the police services, and they do pick and choose what they go to. I have heard directly from police officers that they don't go to a burglary unless the person is there at the scene or unless the person has been physically hurt or attacked or whatever. And unless, certain other criteria fit in, and then they do go out to these burglaries. And some of them have told me that they don't even, this was from serving police officers, I'm not going to name and shame any forces here, but officers from serving police forces have actually, serving officers from police forces have actually told me that they don't go out to these incidents unless they hit certain criteria, such as the burglar is there, or the suspect is there, or someone has been injured, or they've got a weapon, or whatever. And so, again, you might think that's wrong. But given the normal level of policing demand and services, etc., the normal level of crime that's going on, they do pick and choose what they go to. But all of these arrests that have been made in connection with social media posts and the rioting where they've been going through CCTV footage where these idiots, I will say it, where these idiots have been throwing bricks and stuff at police. I mean, why would anyone ever do that? I mean, I'll reserve my opinions for Black Belt Secrets. So subscribe down below to Black Belt Secrets, my other channel. And if you want to learn to make money while you're down there, subscribe to my other channel, Daniel Shansmith, as well. I'll reserve my opinions for that. I'll suffice to say I'll call them idiots for throwing stuff at the police. And they have been tracked down from this CCTV. A lot of them, most of them have been pleading guilty, which is something I'll come back to. But in all this situation, the reason all of that's been going on is because unless they stamp out these pockets of violence and aggression and civil unrest and what should really be termed riots, which is subject for another video, perhaps. But with all of that going on, unless they stamp that out, it will get worse and it will escalate. And before you know it, the entire city is going to be destroyed within all the rioting that's going on. So they have to stamp that out firmly, quickly, and fairly aggressively. Now, again, many people may not agree with the sentences that have been imposed for various offences. And many people are blaming the judges unfairly, in my view. And again, I can give you a reason why I think that's unfair. But a lot of people have been blaming the judges for the harsh sentences and saying that they are under pressure from government, etc. And just to comment briefly on one recent thing that I heard, where someone said that the judges were telling the prosecutors that they should be charged with a more serious offence because they have a higher prison sentence under the sentencing guidelines. And some people have commented, I've seen online, that that's been pressure from the government. That's not quite how I see it. And the reason, actually, I'll touch on it. The reason is some of these offences have been charged as rioting, and some have been charged in just inciting violence when they could have been encouraging murder, for example, without naming names here. But some of these offences could have been charged very much more harshly, and there's a reason they don't. And the typical reason they don't, as in the CPS authorising the police to charge these things, the reason that they bring the charge down to a less serious offence is that it's much more likely to secure a conviction if they plead not guilty, it goes to trial. It is easier to secure a conviction on a lesser offence than it is the more serious offence, because naturally the more serious offence, the higher the requirement of proof to prove that offence, the more serious offence, and thus they charge a lower offence. Judges don't look kindly on that because as far as the judge is concerned, it doesn't matter whether it's difficult to prove the more severe offence. That's what you should charge, is the way that judges will see it, because the judge will see it as If it is rioting, it should be charged as rioting. If it is encouraging murder, judges might see that as you should be charging encouraging murder as opposed to just inciting violence if one is more serious than the other. Again, not naming names, just as an example here. And so judges will look at it like that. Judges are not under pressure, at least my belief is that they would not be under pressure from government. They are following the law and the guidance, the statutory guidance, the sentencing guidelines, and the fact of the matter, if they see someone as being responsible in the way that it is prosecuted, as being charged, responsible for Y offence, then why are they being charged with X offence instead of Y? That's the way the judge will see it, and that's why I believe that comment was made. So I reported in news from this judge. But the point of all this is that with these being charged, the judges are applying the law as it is when they come forward. Now, many of them have pleaded guilty, which is why the judges are applying these sentences very quickly. One of the reasons they have been, the one difference that I think has been seen in recent weeks is that these have been charged these have come to court very quickly for sentencing, which otherwise might take a long time. And one of the reasons might be that usually there's delays for sentencing reports and all of these kind of things. But in many cases, these people are of previous good character and have nothing really to go in the sentence report. And in others, they have an extensive history. And so the history is already there. And one of the other reasons it might just be that they do want to get them through quickly to send a very quick message that these people are being sentenced quickly and severely, but still according to the guidelines, so that they stamp out this unrest, so that it doesn't get out of control and rioting doesn't spread across the country. So when you compare that situation with what I called the normal situation, that is a genuine two-tier policing. Not necessarily two-tier justice, as I might have referred to it. It might seem like two-tier justice, but it is only two-tier in a sense that whilst the unrest is going on, they are treated slightly differently than while we are in a quote-unquote normal level of crime. And no amount of crime should be acceptable, but there's a normal amount when everything else is peaceful, and there is this when there is a huge unrest. Now, there is the argument as to, can people not just express themselves at the displeasure they have of what they see in the political landscape and all of this sort of stuff? Well, there are ways of doing that. And as many people had warned, with the way that you vote, and a lot of the country just did not vote. And so if you didn't vote at the elections, then you shouldn't really be going out and shouting and screaming about government policies, because the way to change government policies is to vote for a government or a candidate party for government that you want to implement their manifesto. And that's how you should be implementing that change. But as to how you express yourself, well, again, there is two-tier, but it's, in my view, a justified two-tier in the sense that, again, there is a normal scenario and there is this civil unrest scenario. If we're in a period of civil unrest when this is really getting out of control and then you post these things online, they may well be dealt with more severely at that moment in time than another occasion when it would just fade into the background of everything else that's going on. Now, that is not to reiterate what I said previously in other videos. It is not the full force of the law as opposed to the half force of the law. I think that's a bit silly. It is the force of the law, but as I say, the two-tier aspect might only change depending on the overall circumstances, because you've probably heard in many of my videos before now that the courts look, and this includes the criminal courts and the civil courts, look at the whole of the circumstances in virtually every type of case that comes forward. It is not just a case of look at these facts by themselves in isolation, nothing else considered, and that's it, here's your sentence. It is this set of facts, these are the circumstances, this is the greater circumstance of what happened, and the greater political landscape, the greater picture of what's going on around the country, the reasons for it, etc. And are you pouring fuel on the fire? Are you contributing to the unrest that's going on? That is why some of the Facebook posts, whilst the chap didn't actually physically turn up, the judge held that it is quite likely that he had, in his post, had an impact on other people that did turn up, or at the very least was likely to have done so, and thus was treated very seriously. But again, when you contrast that with the mobile phone story and the car theft story, when they knew where they were, but the police just didn't turn up, that is why, in my view, and this is not an ideal scenario, and I don't have a solution for you, but this is why a lot of people do have this perception of two-tier justice, because a lot of people are coming forward with these stories to say, well, I reported this to the police and they did nothing. I reported, a burglary or whatever it was to the police and they did nothing. This has been going on. They did nothing. And there are other stories in the news where, police have been heavily criticized. Now, you'll know on my channel that I do support the police generally because they are there to do a job. They are there to protect. They have a difficult job to do. They are often damned if they do, damned if they don't scenario. And so they have a difficult job to do. But when these things happen, they are right out in front for criticism. Now, just as the tail off, as I promised to come back to very briefly, the Manchester Airport incident. Now, clearly, that is an incident that they are taking seriously. They have done a full investigation, so says the Greater Manchester Police. Today, I think I saw a post to say that they have produced a full evidential file for consideration, which shows that they're taking it seriously. I saw one post which I think was unfair that said, so you've done nothing since that happened. I don't think that's fair. They've clearly been looking at lots of footage, CCTV footage, body-worn footage, that much of which many people will not have seen. And so they'll be analysing that. I would think that there'll be a full evidential file. They'll be looking through that and going to the CPS with it to see what happens. So for that, I can only say we will see what happens. But again, some people have commented, why has nothing happened with that when other people have been sent to prison straight away? The simplest answer to that is many of those that have been to prison straight away have obviously pleaded guilty, and it's obviously very straightforward. Whilst, again, this video that you saw, the Manchester incident, may seem straightforward, but clearly there is more to it. I can only say there is, and there must be more to it, because they've had to produce this file, they've taken time to investigate it. So I hope that is a broad overview of why some people, I think, and I empathize with you, why you might feel that there genuinely is a two-tier justice system going around, because there are different times and they are being treated differently depending on what's going on at the time around the country. So leave me your thoughts and comments, politely and respectfully, please. If you want my opinions on some of this that I almost went into in this video, I will reserve them for Black Belt Secrets, because that is just much more of an opinion channel. And I want that to be, that is my opinion. I've deliberately separated them. In fact, that channel started as a martial arts channel. It's been around the rink a little bit on different topics. But for now, among other things, my opinions you'll find on Black Belt Secrets, because I do want to distinguish that from here, which I hope to be objective, neutral, full truth guidance as an alternative, refreshing change from the mainstream media. I will tell you exactly what I think, what a lot of people justify one way or the other. Again, I'm not saying one thing is right. I'm not saying it's right that there should be a two-tiered justice system either way. For what it's worth, I am happy to say that when there is a mobile phone theft and there is a car theft that they can track and trace, they should go and do that. I'm absolutely not in any sense or any stretch saying that that's fine, that they just left that alone. In my view, they should have gone to it. They should have gone to get the phone. They should have gone to get the car. Every theft is a theft and they all should be treated equally. But it's just not realistic that they can do so because they're stretched for resources, and that is not the police's fault. They don't provide their own funding, obviously. So I hope that's useful, food for thought. Let me know if that's given you food for thought, swayed your views, given you any comment to leave down below. And as always, make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching.